Hi there, my name is Cate Mackenzie and I'm a psychosexual therapist and a couples counsellor, and I'm here today to talk to you about letting go, surrendering, releasing, and how you do that and how you might let go. And I've just found it a little bit difficult coming on here straight away, so I need in internal family systems they call it that we always have a part of us called the big self, the big S, that's always there, that's always whole, that's always healed, that can experience things as in the flow. But of course, when we have triggers or energy or big things or even happy things can kind of like get us into a very excited place, and it can feel like we're getting tense even with things that feel exciting or wonderful. Or we can get tense about like a difficult email or the washing up or different things going on. Hi. Oh, lovely to see you. Thank you for saying it's keeping freezing. I'll just check that's, I hope this is, do tell me if that's okay. So yeah, we have all these things, that energy and reactions and things that happen, and what often happens is that when emotion, that's from the Latin movere, moves through us, when we have emotion move through us, often what's happened is we've had a trigger. Something has triggered us, and we often, this is from emotionally focused therapy from Dr. Sue Johnson, we often make it mean something. We have a thought, we have a decision. An email came in and we decide it's good or it's bad or it's difficult or it's awful. And that thought will start to generate feelings, will then start to generate emotions, will start to generate emotions moving like waves through our body. And then we may have a reaction to that. So some people may react by moving away, some people may go into fight, some people may go into fawn, mend, tend, looking after. Some people may disassociate and find it's too much to handle, they want to leave. And so the key with letting go, surrendering, releasing, is finding what you need to help you have enough space to let yourself be with, okay, there's a trigger, there's a feeling, there's some emotion, there's some embodied movement, there's some energy moving in my body. Can I be with that? Can I notice that? Can I allow that to move? Because often when we stay in the triggered place, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fold, collapse place, when we stay in that place, we often are staying in a place where it can feel stressful. In Internal Family Systems Therapy by Richard Schwartz, he talks about that we have, when a vulnerable part of us, an exiled part, is triggered, when it feels like something's come in, a trigger's come in, that may feel like it's going to affect a vulnerable part of us. We have these parts of us called managers and firefighters that are going to stop these things happening. And it's a bit like there was this story of Japanese soldiers after the Second World War who for 30 years were in a forest still thinking the war was on. And so it's a bit like we can receive a trigger or some information or something happening, and we can have a part of us, a manager or a firefighter, that is ready to react or fight or fold or collapse because part of us is still thinking the war is still on. And so if we can get enough space, which is about maybe taking some moments to slow down, to connect with yourself, to realize you always have this part, if that makes sense to you, you always have this big self part, or a part of you that's connected to something bigger, or a part of you that if you just breathe, coming back to breathing, that brings you back into your body, into your senses, sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing, if you have a way of even just noticing what's around you, or noticing yourself, or even just a few minutes of putting bare feet on the earth. It's called earthing, and there's something about putting bare feet on the earth, if you have that opportunity, that allows you to let waves. We have so many waves. We have electromagnetic waves, we have waves of emotion, we have waves of different things going on. Allows the waves to settle. So if you can notice what ways allow you to wave settle. Even for some people it's making a list, or for some people writing a letter that you don't send, so that you can get that, allow that charge to move. Even when people get excited about something that feels like really, really good, there can be a charge with something, even something feeling really, really good. So it's kind of like, how do you let those waves, those charges, how do you let that move through you so you can come back to your own body, to your own embodiment? As you know, we can all of us, analyze and look at and be aware of and acknowledge and intellectually say what's going on for us. But can we feel? Can we be with? Can we slow down? Can you take time to notice, that was a trigger. That made me think that. I made meaning. This is what I made it mean. This is what I made it look like. And then I felt this. And then I experienced these sensations in my body. Can you be with those sensations so that you can allow yourself to let the energy move? Because that's really what wants to happen, is that I've got a lovely friend who, every time something really difficult or something really good, but this is what I noticed, when he said something really difficult might happen, he would say, thank you, the divine, thank you, God. And I used to think, wow, how is he celebrating these difficult things? And what he said was often these different sort of, you could call them waves, you could call them emotions, you could call them triggers. When these different things happened to him, he noticed that if he could go with it, if he could allow it, if he could be with it and allow the experience of that movement in his own body and allow the experience of exploring those feelings, emotions, deep stuff that was buried inside him had a chance to move. And in bridging, which is another couple modality by Hedy Schleifer, which I work with, we call it that you are not a problem. You are an adventure waiting to happen. And often many of us have repressed ourselves or kept ourselves smaller than we might be. And many of us have dreams and ambitions and beautiful things or relationships we'd like to explore or things we'd like to open up to. But when we have these parts of us that are in reaction, and they may have been in reaction for a very long time, sometimes it's really useful. If you're having a block, let's just say you're having a block in a certain area of your life, or you feel like even the thought of opening up to an area of your life brings up stress. Maybe you could tune in and just think of that as a part. Some people give little names to these parts, like, they name these little characters, and they might talk to these little characters, and they find out what age, how old is this? How long have you been with me, this protector part or this manager part? And what do you need? What do you want? And you see, it works so much in couples because each individual has their cycles. They have ways that a trigger will affect them and set off their nervous system so that they're feeling very stressed. And we have something called limbic resonance, whereas if you're in a pair, if you're having stress hormones running through your body, you will affect the person in your life. And so the more you can kind of start to notice your cycles, notice what triggers you, notice what you need to slow down, to be with. Do you close your eyes? Do you go in nature? Do you slow down for a minute? Do you write? Do you ask a compatriot to listen to you? to say, you know, I'm really triggered, or something's going on, and just want to be heard. To allow these waves of emotion, waves of energy to move through you, and to allow whatever's happening, maybe it's discovering something for you. So often when something seems really, really difficult, and this is not to bypass or deny difficulty, it's to really attend to it. But sometimes other pieces of your puzzle may come to life. And it's about, how do we give space to that? How do you give space to yourself so that that wise part of you, which is always there, and that's the kind voice in my experience, the kind, compassionate voice that you have inside you. It's not a critical voice. It's the kind, compassionate part of you that can soothe you, that can really be with you, to realize that you're much stronger than you thought you were. But we can sometimes have these protector parts that criticize us or tell us not to do things, and they're doing a really good job, and they were born out of at the time maybe preventing you. So for example, if you find that you're blocked around sexuality, or you're blocked around your artistry, or you're blocked around your dreams, maybe you want to write, or you paint, or have a partner, but you find that something's blocked, maybe there's a part, and there's a part that's protecting you. And there were very good reasons. Maybe when you were young, you had a bad experience around your art or your writing, or you kissed someone when you were really young and they criticized you for how you kissed them, or you heard it through gossip, being criticized for how you kissed, and that kind of made you feel really vulnerable and tender around opening up to being sexual, or being with a partner, or even your own sexuality. Or maybe you had an art teacher who told you you weren't good enough, or a singing teacher who told you you couldn't sing. So naturally, in order to keep you safe, these parts came in to make sure you never did those things. But in fact, maybe there's part of you that's longing to open up to your own sexuality, or a relationship, or longing to heal some relationships, but you don't know how to do that. And so part of that is to maybe communicate with these different parts, writing letters you don't send. So really you start to get to know and to open up to this kind of healing. And partly what it is Einstein said, we don't heal, we don't make peace with something with the same energy that was the triggering energy. We need to allow ourselves to process that movement of energy, that movement of emotion, the triggering energy. We need to allow that to move and to connect with it and feel it and be it, to come to a different place, to come to a more peaceful place, to in a way surrender it and move it. Now a lot of people say, well, how do you let go? How do you actually do that? And of course what I'm suggesting is that there are ways to be with, to notice. If that's not easy for you, maybe there's a compatriot that would be with you, or maybe you could see a therapist, an IFS therapist, or an emotionally focused therapist, or many different kinds of therapists that might be with you to allow you to experience that movement. But equally, letting go could be writing, could be painting, could be singing, could be moving, could be dancing. Something that allows you to embody. So you're not just aware of what the trigger is, intellectually, cognitively, you are also embodying it, shifting it. It's not that any of us have to be perfect. We're on this earth plane learning. This is a school. But the shift is from understanding to embodying, to moving through in the way that's right for you, obviously. Don't do anything that isn't right for you. And it's finding out, because each of us is so unique. We are like an orchestra that Source moves through. And each of us has our own unique way of playing our tune. You know, I love musicians and I love comedians, and I love the way they use words or sounds. I find it really inspiring. And so it's finding what is yours, because anything that you feel, yes, that's me, that's what I want to express, that is your divine gift, and that is really, really needed. And finding the way to do that safely so that you get in touch with that big self part of you, or that part of you that feels really whole and healed and soft and soothed. And so you can handle. Sometimes we keep ourselves small because it feels like, it would be hard to handle perhaps more reactivity or more energy. It's not that we don't get reactivity, even if we keep ourselves small, because energy is always moving in the universe, whether it's someone shouting at the bus stop, or a neighbor hoovering, or you get a letter that you weren't expecting, or you get something really joyful you weren't expecting. We have these flavors of triggers, which trigger feelings, which trigger emotions, which trigger waves, which trigger a movement. And it's, how do you come back? How do you come back to you? How do you slow down enough? Because the idea is, if you can get enough space and you can be gentle enough with yourself, you can find out what you need and what you want. So, for example, in pair work, in couple work, often what can be really triggering for people is your partner may continue to do the same behaviour, which is very triggering potentially for you. But equally, what if they always do certain triggering things? And how would it be if you could resource yourself, whether your partner changes or not? You become the person you've always been looking for. Whether you're single, whether you're in a pair or a throuple or quadruple, whatever you are, whatever your orientation or your sexuality, what if you found out what you need? I believe we all need a village. We need a village of lovely people that help us, compatriots that support us, that see us, that encourage us. But what if you've got also that village inside you, that you can encourage your own village, and you can kind of, no matter what your partner does or your family does, and it's not to say you shouldn't release the emotions. It's not to say that you shouldn't acknowledge if your caregivers have stressed you out, or you need to set boundaries, or you need to do whatever you need to do. But how would it be if you started to give yourself that, to write the letters, to get the compatriots, to get your village in place for you, and to not expect your partner to meet all of it, or certain friends to meet all of it. And if they do, they do. This is the gift of flirting, is which I really love to teach, is the idea of engagement without expectation. The idea of not pushing other people to be what they might not want to be, but maybe invitational space. And then they can step into that if they choose to. And you may find it's a very different connection if you create an invitational space rather than expectational space. But that's a big key, is how are you resourcing you? And part of it is your protectors have been doing a beautiful job of looking after you. It may be that you feel shy and you are not connecting so much with people, and that may be absolutely correct, because you want to connect with people who are like you. Or you need more help, but you want to get help from people who are sensitive like you are. So you want the right help. And so what they do say is check out several sources of things. Check out, ask. You don't have to race into anything. And some of us might race. I know I've got a part of me that might go really, really fast and race sometimes. And if I do that, it can be very exciting, but it can also be overwhelming for me and anyone around me. So I need ways to make sure I'm slowing down. And how do I do that? I can ask other people for tools and tips. I can notice my own nervous system. Have I got overexcited? Whether that's for a good thing or not such a good thing. Where am I in my nervous system? Because if I come back to my own embodiment, if I come back to my gentleness, and also why am I racing? Is there something I need to complete that I have got frightened of completing because of that perfectionist thing? If I complete that, is it good enough? And so am I getting excited about doing other things? So really, as you notice what is happening for you, and you get a chance to get a little bit more spaciousness, you can start to see why this is happening. What triggered you? Then what thoughts did you make that? What meaning did you make of that? What thoughts are you thinking about that? What feelings are you feeling? What's happening in your body? And then what do you do with that? So sometimes, it might be that someone didn't look at you in the right way and you make it mean that they don't like you, that they don't want to be around you. Then you feel low. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not a nice enough person. I'm not a friend. They don't like me. I'm not important. Then that could feel low. Then you might feel, I'm going to take myself away and feel really low. What if that person just wasn't in the right place? They weren't in the right place to connect at that time. Maybe it's nothing to do with you. But how do you come back to you to reassure you that you are good enough? If you have a dream to paint, to dance, to write, and you put something forward and you get a rejection, and it feels like it's about your writing, dancing, or art, or whatever it is. How do you handle that? That there's so much in the world in different ways, and that may not be the thing, or it might be later on. How do you bring that lightness? And that's about letting go, surrendering, resourcing, coming back to your empowerment, coming back to you being a center, the true self. I think in compassionate therapy, there's another aspect, they call it the why self. How do you come back to that part of you that knows so much, and how do you communicate with that part? I like writing, I like meditating, and I love talking to people. I find that amazing pieces come to me through people, or things that I notice. So what is it that for you that helps you let go? What is it for you that helps you surrender, release, let go? Is it movement? Is it activity? Is it communication? Is it writing? And how is it for you to even think about slowing down, stopping for a moment, creating that simplicity? And looking at that little internal village, and maybe communicating with one of your internal characters and finding out what they need, what they want, maybe thanking them. Often these parts of us have been holding us safe, but maybe they don't need to hold you so safe anymore, because maybe you can hold yourself safe and you can take daring adventures forward. But maybe thanking them for looking after you when it felt like warfare. And so sometimes we can't let go till we can let go. We can't surrender, we can't release till we're ready to release, we're ready to surrender. And there's no shoulds, there's no musts. It's really so unique and individual to each of us, because we've all got parts of us that are contracted or numb. And there are so many different parts. It's a lovely woman called Amanda Lawrence was talking about waves of energy moving on the earth plane, and that when we get polarized and we think things are either or, and like in politics, like in so many aspects of life, when we, masculine or feminine or right or left, or right or wrong. We sometimes can get caught up in that, but actually there's a middle place, and this is what Einstein was talking about, is that when we can go to this different place, and she was talking about it being mauve, this middle place, this mauve place, not blue or red, but this mauve place of peace. And it's in that place, it's allowing ourselves to come to that more peaceful place, which maybe you get to through writing, slowing down, having a walk, being in nature, whatever it is for you. It's in the mauve place that a new thought might come, and it's softening. So it's kind of like, of course it's important that you set boundaries, you look after yourself, and you say yes, you say no to what's right for you. Of course that's really important, but often when we go into that, when we've allowed ourselves to be with these feelings, when we've allowed them to move, and we can go into this softer, more peaceful place, the letting go doesn't come from that strong, egotistical, empowered no place. It could do, but it might come from a softer kind of, yeah, it's okay. Someone's upset, they want something, they feel like you're treading on their toes, and you can say, okay, you do that, or you take that, and there may be a gift in that. Someone, in stand-up comedy, I used to do a little bit of stand-up comedy, and initially when I got hecklers, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And I asked someone, and they said, well, what would you want to do? And I thought, I'd like to bring the heckler on stage. I'd like to engage the heckler. That's what I'd like to do. And I started to engage the hecklers. And it became an amazing shift. They became part of my act. And I engaged the heckler and I brought them on stage. And I think in a way, there's something about when people heckle people that they're poking. Sarah Silverman, there's a beautiful story, you can look it up if you want to on the net. And Sarah Silverman was being trolled by someone, I think on Twitter. Sarah Silverman, famous American comic. And she was being trolled, and she really found it upsetting. And then she went and found out and connected with the guy that was trolling her. And she discovered that he was having a really, really, really difficult time, a really difficult life, and so much pain and so much despair. And his trolling was part of his releasing his despair. And she made a connection with him, and she decided to help him. And it was such a beautiful story, because it kind of shows us that, when people hit out at us or even reject us or let us go, it's very hard at the time, because we might have protectors that want to protect us, and we might tell ourselves, we might make meaning, oh, I'm no good, or they hate me, or I'm bad, or I'm shameful, I'm bad, I'm wrong. But in fact, when people are doing these different things to us, it may be because they're in a bad place and they're in despair. Now, we may not have that chance to find that out. We may not. So how do we resource ourselves? How do we get ourselves to feel good enough so you can really fly and be you with all the beauty that you are? So that sometimes when we get heckled, we learn from that. I learn from people all the time. And sometimes you have to set a limit because you're too tired and you can't take too much on. What's the balance? And this is where our village of compatriots, I believe, come in, where we can check in with, we can have our checks and balances with people. So we can rise, we can grow, we can allow ourselves to flow with our source energy or our big self or whatever it is you like to call it. But how do we have the places where we have checks and balances where we can let go? And in my world, that's your creativity, your writing. Is it a therapist? Is it a group? Is it some friends? Is it mentors? Is it guides, coaches? How do you have those places that help you keep moving, keep catalyzing, keep releasing so you can come back to peace? That violet place. How do you do that? And what is it you need in a daily way? Like the Miracle Morning guy who talks about meditation, affirmation, writing and exercise in the morning, which fills you up. And how do you do that in a regular way so that you create spaciousness for you to keep releasing, keep letting go? I did hear this beautiful woman who talked about really allowing your grief, and that many people have a lot of grief. They've had a lot of loss. Most of us have had a lot of loss. Some people have had a lot of people die in their lives. Some people just have had a lot of loss, a lot of breakups, a lot of things letting go. But because we live in this world sometimes of a lot of stimulation, so many things going on, so many messages, different ways, do we give space? And she talked about having orgasms of grief. It was really beautiful. A woman from Portland in America, she talked about giving yourself space to go to bed with your grief. Whether you write it, cry, masturbate, whether you give yourself a massage, whether you put certain relaxing clothes on. I have a cousin who's absolutely recommended me to get kaftans to wear at home to symbolize to myself relaxing, moving around in a relaxing way, and it has made a massive difference to give these different changes of clothes which stimulate that part of me to think, I am now relaxing, I'm now really letting go. So what is it that you need to let go? What is it you need to support you to let go? If you find it hard to let go, I don't think letting go is that easy. I really don't. It might just be me, but it might be just others. Sometimes it's easier than other times, but sometimes even an exciting thing can be hard to let go, because I might put all the effort in, but I want to see the answer with that effort. So how do I do that? How do I put effort in and let go? Knowing that part of my practice is putting the effort in, but it may not yield results, but I learnt from the effort. How do I do that? In my world, it's the 3 C's and a K. Care, kindness, compassion, consideration, maybe lots of C's. This is from Jacob Jacobson, but also lots of people I've heard talk about these C's and K's. What do you need to do that? And how can you regularly come back to that? I was telling someone the other day how, I've bought all these blankets, lovely blankets. I bought these heavy blankets, these weighted blankets, and I've bought these really, really furry blankets. And, so that it really signals, and I put loads of blankets on my bed as well, really heavy blankets, because that's the thing for little children. Often you might give them really heavy blankets to help them sleep, to help them relax, let go. And it helps for adults too. And I told this friend of mine, about all these heavy blankets and all these different things. And I also do it with my partner. I might encourage him and put some blankets on him. And she said, oh, do you give him a cuddly toy too? And I thought, well, that's a good idea. But she was thinking, maybe I'm like all this softness. What are you doing? Because many of us are not used to it. We're used to maybe thinking of that for children. But can you think of that for yourself? And you give yourself that care. Then we're helping ourselves to let go. So it's lovely to be with you. I hope you have a really great day. I have some courses coming up. I've listed them on the information. I have one at the end of November on letting love in, how to do that. I'm also part of a festival of pleasure. And I also have a really lovely course in January about communication from an embodied place. So I hope to see you on one of them, and it's lovely to be with you. Thank you for being with me. Thanks.